All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Brad Englert. Brad, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I have really been looking forward to this conversation. I want to, you and I got to connect earlier. And
Hmm.
I mean, I want to start off by giving a shout out to Jessica and the folks over at the podcast guest platform, because without them and the work that they're doing, you and I may have never met. And
That's
I
right.
really want to, honor that relationship and just, I really appreciate those guys and what they're doing.
Hmm.
And it's, I have such a cool relationship with Jessica. It's kind of like she's like taking me under her wing and is always reaching out to me and
That's
saying, "Hey,
great.
Kev, here's somebody who I think would make a great guest for your podcast." And she has never steered me wrong yet.
That's
And
great.
and so, when you and I connected before, it was like, I don't know, for me, Brad, it was kind of like, because it came through Jessica, I felt like I'd already known you and stuff. And that's a beautiful thing. And what a powerful testament to relationships, which is what this
Well,
podcast is all
and
about.
that's that, and you have an authentic business relationship with her. That's
Yes,
terrific.
yes, absolutely. Well, what I'd like to do is start off by turning it over to you so that we can set a little bit of context for the listeners. And I want to give them an idea about who you are, who do you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you're making in the world. And we'll just start there, Brad.
Okay. Well, I after undergraduate school taught high school in Australia for a year and a half, which was fun. Then I decided I grew up outside of Chicago, and I decided I wanted to be warm, to go to graduate school and be warm. So I moved to Austin, Texas,
Well, that's
and went.
warmer.
I overdid it, and have a master's degree in. A guy like me who is an liberal arts undergraduate degree, graduate degree in public policy. And they taught me the technical skills. And then they taught me the design skills. Then they taught me the management skills.
Okay.
And over 22 years with the firm, which Arthur Andersen became Andersen Consulting, which became Accenture, over 22 years, 10 of those as a partner, I really had some terrific bosses and great mentors. I had two clunkers along the way, but everyone else was top notch. And, the guy who hired me, I actually, thought he went to the same graduate school, and he asked me what my research was. And I said, IT and government. He goes, hell, Brad, that's what we do. He was a manager with Arthur Andersen.
Okay.
So we've stayed in touch for 40 years, and
Wow.
I just had my 40th reunion. So um, the culture of the firm was always to grow your team, to focus on training, um, always have a mentor or be a mentor.
Yep.
And in my 22nd year as a partner, about to retire, I was teaching project management to 200 people in our training center in Chicago from all over the world with other partners. Yeah, so you're always expected to teach. When I started the firm, there were 40,000 of us. Now there's 700,000 Accenture
Wow.
employees.
Wow. That's a
So
lot of
after,
growth.
yeah, and after I left the retired the first time, I got a call out of the blue from the University of Texas at Austin, and the president wanted an IT strategy from someone who knows higher ed, but outside the university. Well, my practice area at Accenture was higher ed. So my clients were Vanderbilt, Ohio State, Columbia, Michigan, Illinois, Cal State, Texas A&M. So it's like, yeah, I know higher ed. And being the alma mater. So they were too cheap to pay me, hour a week pro bono. didn't even pay for my parking or dry cleaning. And I started in October. By March, I was half-time. By June, I was full-time. And I served 7 years as chief information officer.
Wow.
And my wife said, "Oh, I knew you'd do that." I said, "Guys are stupid. You need to tell us stuff."
Yeah,
She goes,
right.
"Oh, you would have done it anyhow." But at at the university, I had 330 people in my organization, and it had kind of a troubled culture. And it was a culture that was kind of a fire drill, heroics type culture. They rewarded heroics, and which is fine, but I would like to be proactive and try to avoid the need for heroics and
Uh-huh.
actually turn it into more of a customer focused, not a heroics focus.
Hmm.
And it took a couple of years and some changes in my direct reports, but we finally made that transition of culture. And, you know, mentoring my direct reports and such, it was successful. And we turned it into a very customer oriented, predictable, truthful organization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where we started was our values. What were our values? And we hadn't really articulated them. And so we asked campus, what do you want from us, our organization? Number
Uh-huh.
one was collaboration. Number two was truthfulness, because the wounded organization wasn't always truthful.
Okay.
Um, so and we wanted consistency and apologize when you screw up. Those are the values they wanted. But number one for my direct reports was family first.
Yeah.
Well, why is that? Because I live in Austin, Texas. We have all the giant global technology firms here. I cannot compete on salary,
Yeah.
but I sure can compete on balance of life.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this. I wanted them to work a good 8 hours and then go home,
Yeah.
go read a book, go work out. And I had one engineer who got lured away by a startup here in town. And I said, look, I don't say this for everybody, but if you don't like it, you can come back.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, they fed him, they did his dry cleaning. 2 weeks later, he calls and said, "Can I come back?" It was a zoo. He
Yeah.
he never went home. That's why they fed him.
Wow.
And after
Wow.
two, he said, "I took the job because of the money,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't see my family."
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and he's still there 10, 15 years later. It's like he found, but you have to let your people try it, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and sometimes it does work. So I retired a second time from the university, and I thought, how can I still mentoring two or three people a year, but how can I spread the word more efficiently? And
Mhm.
that was where I got the idea of take 40 years of stories and put them in a book. And that's my spheres of influence.
Mhm.
And we talk about those relationships you have that are close to you, like your boss, your direct reports, all your staff,
Yeah.
executive leadership, and then those who are less directly impacted, customers, peers and influencers, and strategic vendor partners. And then I tried to tell, kind of good, bad, not so good stories and help people learn how to build the skill of creating authentic business relationships. They don't teach it in business school. They should,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's where the firm taught me from day one. It's all about treating your customers right, working with your peers as a team, that whole helping each other
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah.
And when I finished the manuscript, I stepped back and I thought there are really three principles that apply to all business relationships.
Okay.
The first is understand their goals and aspirations.
Mhm.
Who doesn't want to share that? If
Yeah.
you're a boss, you want your team to know what your goals and
Yep.
aspirations are.
Yep.
The second one, set and manage expectations. It's so simple to do, but we often don't take the time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then third is genuinely caring about their success. So I
Mhm.
got to the university and I met with a faculty member who'd been there for 40 years. I had worked with him on a statewide network design 15 years earlier, which was very successful. And he's kind of a crusty guy. And I said, okay, give me some advice. He goes, get out of the office and tell people you give a damn. And that was the best advice ever because you can't hide in your office. You
Yeah.
got to be visible.
Yeah.
And so with my direct reports, I would always meet with them in their offices. Well, why
Okay.
did I do that? Because I walk the entire campus and I run into customers, I run into my peers and influencers.
Hmm.
Um, and more importantly, their staff see me coming to their boss and showing that respect and not having them come to the ivory tower.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I encourage them to do the same with their peers. And so I had about 10 relationships on campus of peers, people I would work with, like public safety, yeah, the construction people, um, you know, those organizations that we had to work together.
Mhm.
And my people, and I'd meet with them every 4 to 6 weeks, more more often when we work closer together. So
Okay.
public safety, you know, it wasn't a question of if there'd be a problem. It was a question of when there would be a problem. And I
Hmm.
worked with the director of public safety to proactively think about how will we work together in a crisis situation. And we would practice that. So we had a shooting, we had a bomb scare, we had a murder over 8 years. The power short went out for the first time in 20 years. We actually generate our own power, but we
Wow.
had practiced power outages. We had practiced ice storms. We had practiced, now some things you can't practice for. So we just had a standing conference bridge that if there was a crisis, we would get on the bridge and then
Okay.
talk about. And it was connected with the executive leadership team. So we
Okay.
would know how to help them resolve issues. And then I asked all my direct reports to meet with 8 or 10 people across the campus. And that every 4 to 6 weeks. And that became like a nervous system
Yeah.
because you're going out, you're talking to customers, you're saying, what are we doing well? What could we do better?
Mhm.
Um, give them a heads up. Hey, we're replacing 21,000 phones with voice over IP. It's going to be irritating, but we have a team. We'll give you plenty of notice. We'll help you through the transition. If
Mhm.
you have a problem, here's my phone number. And that just builds trust. It
Yeah.
builds,
Yeah.
you know, a symbiotic relationship with probably close to 90 people over, in an organization with 52,000 students, 4,000 faculty, 21,000 staff.
Wow. Wow.
So that's setting. I had a woman who said, when you told me to go meet with Sally in that department, I thought you were insane because Sally hated Central IT and her boss hated Central IT. Why? Because there were some past prior transgressions
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they were not treated well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I said, well, you just need to meet with her, tell her we're trying to change from fire drill and heroics to customer service and just get feedback.
Yeah.
And so And I said, I want you inside the tent with her instead of her outside throwing rocks at us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And sure enough, after about 6 months, they became fast friends and colleagues.
Yeah.
She became an advocate for us.
Yeah.
Her boss then became an advocate for us. Well, if you do that 90 to 100 times,
Yeah.
you're going to have a powerful response.
That's right. And you're right. That is so powerful because I can't tell you. how many people I've talked with, how many entrepreneurs, how many founders, how many CEOs I've spoke with over the years that have had, less than desirable experiences with whatever, hiring somebody to help them with a certain aspect of their business or whatever it was. And they end up getting a little bit jaded or what have you. And
Mm,
when they find somebody who, like you said, just truly cares
yeah,
about them and will communicate effectively and will own it when we mess up, because you know what,
that's
once
right.
in a while we're gonna
That's right.
mess up once in a while,
That's right.
and just own that when it happens, you know.
So I had two lists of my vendors. I had the most hated vendor list and the most beloved vendor list.
Mhm.
Now, how did people earn the most hated? It's the people who treated us as a transaction,
Yeah,
came around once a year for their money, increased 10% every year, and offered no support.
yeah, yeah,
And we actually would fire them over time and bring in people who actually were understanding where we were headed,
yeah,
asking how they could help, bringing new products to the table, changing their product if it wasn't working at our scale, because we're one of the largest universities in the world. If they make their product work for us, guess what? It's going to work for a lot of places.
that's right, that's right.
and and it's amazing how many people don't take the time to learn about their customer.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
not complicated. You just have to ask.
that's right, that's right. You just and when we do that, when we ask questions and then listen, we give people this amazing gift that they get to receive so seldom, which is a gift of being seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah,
And when they
yeah,
really, because that's what people really want, they want to feel that way.
that's right.
And when we give them that gift, it's an amazing thing takes place. And it's like you said, it's far more than a transactional relationship. That's a transformational relationship, you know. And I really appreciate all that you've shared, Brad. And I want to switch gears just a little bit here now that we've set some context here. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, Brad, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And, Brad, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
So my person is Marty Cole. Marty
Okay.
hired me, but we met at a reception for our graduate school. He graduated about 4 years before I did. And we were at a reception and he just asked the polite question, "What's your research in?" And I said, "Well, use of computers in government." And he goes, "Hell, Brad, that's what we do." And that started me getting more interested in learning more about Arthur Anderson. And I just did
Uh-huh.
some research. There was a Wall Street Journal article talking about their training center outside of Chicago, their emphasis on skill building all along the way.
Okay.
And and he was my boss on and off for several years.
Okay.
I actually, when I wrote the book, I took the time to go through all my annual reviews for 22 years with the firm. And I just looked at what he advised me to do the first year. Then I looked at what he advised the second year, the
Okay.
third year, and they did a masterful job in helping me grow into being a partner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They didn't hire me to be a programmer. I needed to know how to do it and how to manage programmers, but
Sure.
they hired me to be a partner in the firm who could work with customers, if it's either the top 100 Fortune companies or public sector higher ed. and help them solve problems. But it
Okay.
was really, and I told them about this, that, going through each year and seeing how they guided me and gave me, how he gave me, I remember one role, he goes, I'm going to give you a field promotion. You're up for associate partner. I want you to go run this project, multi-million dollar project, and act like you're an associate partner. Don't worry if, things don't go right. I'll be there to help you if needed. But I want the client to see you and I want your team to see you as an associate partner.
Okay. Okay.
It was kind of a very safe way to test the wings,
Yeah.
test my wings. And and when it was over, it gave us both the confidence that I would be successful at that next level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of a no, it was a learning experience, not they didn't shove me too quickly or too slowly.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And then as a partner, you're expected to work with customers, not only sell the work, but deliver the work with quality. And, it started first, they were $5 million projects. So after 10 years, they were $100 million projects.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, and then it was time for me to retire so the younger generation could take over,
Mm-hmm.
which is what happened. But I think just the care that they took, that he took in helping guide me through those different levels of my career has really been important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm at the university and I have a big issue with a global technology vendor.
Okay.
The service would go down for half a day, which never happens. There was bugs that were causing us problems, and we were moving this service to 21,000 people. We moved it to about 2,000 people, and there were just problems, incompatibilities with Apple, whatever. And was on a conference call with this company, and I said, okay, when are you going to get more stable? Because I don't want to move more people to the service if
Mm-hmm.
you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
And they didn't really answer appropriately, like it was non-committal. And I said, well, you know what? From this point on, I'm halting all migrations to your service until we get this fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just before 4th of July. I was going to cancel my vacation to handle this issue. Well, since we stopped, I went on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, my wife and I and younger son are in Portland, condo looking out at Cannon Beach. I'm drinking this delicious Cabernet from Oregon. And I just thought to myself, how can I get higher into that organization? And I thought of Marty Cole, the guy who hired me. He he was serving on the executive committee of Accenture. He certainly knows people at this global technology company.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out he served on a board of a jointly owned company between Accenture and this other company. And he was the chairman of the board.
Wow. Wow.
So he went to the university, so he wants to help.
Yeah.
So he said, I'll call them on Monday. And he lives in Florida, and I was just picturing this missile coursing across the US, knowing it would hit the West Coast on Monday morning. And sure enough, at 10 o'clock my time, 8 a.m. their time, I got a call from the senior vice president. And I said, look, we have a 5 alarm fire, and you guys are giving us a 1 alarm response. I don't want this to go public. We need to make it work. And she goes, we'll fix it. We'll make it work. And to her credit, she funded a firm to review the project because there was a little blame on both sides.
Okay.
It wasn't just them. And then she committed to fix those bugs and actually sent her engineers 5 times over a year to fix all those issues.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
these engineers have never been outside. They've never seen a customer in the wild. They're like possums,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
They
it's
just
like,
stay in there in closed air. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, this is a customer. This is my executive assistant. You sit with her and watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after a year, we resolved all the issues, restarted, and it was smoothest, quietest, most boring implementation ever.
Wow. Wow.
But 30 years later, after being hired, I called the guy who hired me. And sometimes you have to call on a boss, a
Yeah.
former boss or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a powerful testament to the power of relationships right there. This relationship that you and Marty have had. How many years now have you and
Uh,
Marty known each other?
about 40, 40.
40 years. Long time. Long
Yeah.
time. And look at all that has come in your life as a result of this relationship that you've had with Marty. And
Yeah.
even that instance right there, where you were able to get a hold of him, and he was, as it turned out, just the guy that you needed to be talking with about that.
Exactly.
And the fact that you already had a relationship with him just made it that much easier to get things done and
That's
get
right.
things done quickly and efficiently, you know.
Yeah.
And I look at this kind of thing and it's like, and like I think of relationships that I have spanning back, 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
And those relationships are far more valuable today than they were 20 or 30 years ago
Sure.
because I've grown, they've grown. And so
Yeah.
the relationships become so much more valuable as more time passes and stuff.
That's right.
And that is just one thing that I I I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs, especially now after hosting this podcast for 2.5 years, a lot of like very successful entrepreneurs who I've had an opportunity to interview for this, they're like, Kev, I didn't place nearly as high a value on relationships for much of my business career.
Mm.
But when I really started figuring out the power of relationships, and that, because I know for me personally, for many years now, I've believed that relationships are our most valuable asset. Everything else
Right.
comes from that. And
Well, you just think about if you're trying to sell to someone, it's very expensive to keep selling to new clients.
yeah,
It's much more cost effective to keep selling to your existing client base. And I actually would review my client list and say, is everyone a good client? Because not everyone is a good client.
mm,
And
amen.
I had a client who used to ask for free stuff all the time because her boss wanted her to do that.
Uh,
And it was like kabuki theater. Every week she'd ask for free stuff, and I'd say, I'll be happy to do a change order for you. And
mm,
when that project ended, I said, I'm not working for you ever again. And she goes, I don't blame you. So she knew that, her boss was making them a bad client, bad
yeah,
customer.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, relationships. It's a give and take, and it's a give and take where score isn't being kept,
Right.
and it's just we do it because we care about the people in our lives, and we would just do it to help them out.
And
And
what I've noticed is you might not have talked to someone for 10 years. It doesn't matter.
that's
It's
right.
like there's no time jump. I mean, you're like you never left. So I had a
That's right.
woman who was my client years ago call me at the university. Her son was applying for a job as an attorney. I
Okay.
met the son when he was 5 years old. So I knew the guy. And she said, would you talk with him? And it's like, of course I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a successful working relationship, several important projects. And so I talked to him and I said, look, universities talk to each other. There's a group of attorneys across all the big universities and here's the name of the group. Go look them up and find out what their issues are. Because when I sign a contract with Google, I don't start from scratch. I call UC Berkeley and get their contract.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he got the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was
That's
like,
awesome.
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, for anybody listening to this, Brad, and going, man, Kevin, I really like Brad. I love what he stands for. I love how Brad shows up. How can are there any resources? Website? I know you got your book. Any resources that we can offer them that we can include with the show notes and stuff with the.
Yeah, my website is www.bradenglert.com. Very simple. There's a lot of resources there on the website, a lot of media links, like this will be there eventually added. And I'm going to send you a customized link for your
Okay,
podcast that will offer up some free pages to read so they get a flavor for the book.
perfect.
Um, it'll secondly offer up where you can buy the book, and there's audiobook, ebook, whatever.
Okay,
Third, they can schedule time on my calendar and have
awesome,
a chat. So I will
awesome.
send you that link. And I even have a YouTube channel, which is kind of fun. There's the story about the guy who said, get out of your office and give a damn. It's
Uh-huh.
one of my videos. So that might be of interest. And then it's an Amazon bestseller in three categories:
Fantastic.
leadership training, mentoring and coaching, and customer relations, which were my target
Yeah,
audiences.
yeah. Very good. Well, congratulations on that, Brad. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
So, okay, so I'll make sure that we include that. Any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap, Brad?
Yeah, I would encourage people to just start with one relationship and try to understand their goals and aspirations, set and manage expectations, and care. You don't have to do everything at once,
Yeah,
but if you're an entrepreneur, who's your best customer?
yeah,
And then just spend some time with them
yeah,
and
yeah.
learn more. So, don't boil the ocean, just start with one.
Just start with one. Amen. Absolutely. Well, Brad, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. I really appreciate it and really appreciate you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.